and welcome to Americans Learn. My name is Lauren, and today I am going to be looking at a dead sound video again, the Dinosauria, the animated series. This time I'm going to be looking at the making of Old Buck. So the last time I watched Old Buck and Our Frozen Past, and this time I'm going to be just looking at the making of Old Buck. A couple of people in the last video told me I definitely should have read the description in the original videos, because then I would know a little bit more about what was happening. And so going forward with this series, I will look a little bit deeper into the descriptions themselves. I don't usually have to do that, so good to know going forward that is something useful. Honestly, I usually only look at the descriptions when I'm trying to find if I'm doing an animatic or something and I need to find a bunch of different people to credit. 90% of the time it's the reason I look at the description, which is probably terrible of me because I put interesting stuff in the description sometimes, and sometimes not interesting, but sometimes, important. And I'm like, but for some reason it's just I don't always look at it in other people's videos because I just don't. But like I said, we're going to look at the making of Old Buck.
Hello, my name is David, and welcome to the first of many behind-the-scenes videos I'll be making covering my Dinosauria series. The Dinosauria series isn't just a series of animated short films. I've been treating this like a very large, multimedia, creative and educational adventure. I've been doing research, writing notes, doing drawings, and making large clay sculptures for each of these films.
Whoa!
All compiled into one big sketchbook.
Oh, that's beautiful.
The animated short films might be the end result, but there is so much more to these projects that you guys haven't seen yet. So let's get started.
Okay, let's go. That's crazy. I didn't realize he was also doing sculptures and stuff. That's so cool. It's you'd be surprised how often digital art, drawings and paintings and 3D art, they don't always match. So or they mix well. Sometimes people are good at one but not the others. So I think it's really cool that he's good at all of them. Oh, wow.
Most of you watching this video probably know me from my Autodale animated series, and my recent experiences with those films are the reason the Dinosauria series exists. The Autodale films were becoming far too large and far too complicated for me to continue working on them to the standard that I was. Working on the most recent film in the series, Immortal Machine, was a particularly bad experience for me, and I had to take a break. I wasn't in a good place, and to remind myself that animation was still something I wanted to do, I knew I needed to go back to basics.
That's kind of awesome though that he went from this futuristic sci-fi thing to just the past, straight to dinosaurs. That's crazy.
I needed to start a new film and make it about dinosaurs, because they are my favorite things in the world.
They are pretty cool.
The Dinosauria series got off to a bit of a rocky start though. As you can see, the first page in my sketchbook does not say Old Buck in the top left corner. It says All Days. Old Buck is all the way on page 13.
Oh wow.
All Days was going to be a very different film from what the Dinosauria series became. It was going to be a surreal, gritty, post-apocalyptic, dialogueless survival story about a group of human beings trying to survive an encounter with a Tyrannosaurus Rex. The film was set on an Earth that was recovering from some unnatural anomaly, where all days happened at once. And after this mysterious science fiction...
They've done that in, there was a Doctor Who episode that kind of did that at one point. Everything was incongruous because you had World War II and World War I and the ancient Egypt, and everything was all happening at the same time.
Cataclysm. The world is in ruins. It is now a patchwork, broken planet where all eras of Earth's history have been blended together, all meshing into one giant unstable mega ecosystem of survival of the fittest across all time. This frankly bizarre setting was never really going to be the focus though. It was just going to be the backdrop to some fun, creative man versus prehistoric beast set pieces.
I love
really
that.
liked this idea. I even
That's really
started
cool.
thinking of making All Days into a series itself, each revealing just a little bit more about that mysterious cataclysm that caused all of this.
It's pretty cool.
I was heavily inspired by the work of stop-motion animator and special effects titan Ray Harryhausen for this project. Ray Harryhausen's one of my favourite people. I've seen all of his films, and I recently got to see a lot of his stop-motion models in person in
cool.
Edinburgh, which, for a cinephile, dino-obsessed animator like myself, was a pretty heckin'
really
magical
cool.
experience. I got really close to making this film. I finished the sketchbook, I finished maybe half of the assets I required, I finished half the set, even going as far as doing some unfinished test animation based on some of my concept sketches.
That was pretty.
But after all of this work and research and drawing, I started to realise that this project was getting just as complicated and difficult and stressful as the Autodale series that I was putting on hold for being too complicated and difficult and stressful. I needed to make a film that was easier and simpler with minimal stress, something that was fun. Which finally...
Because I would still like to see that at some point. I don't know if you ever ended up making it, but like, that's still really cool. But yeah, going back to something that's a lot more pared down makes a lot more sense.
Brings us to page 13.
But again, also, it's like, I get where you like... Because that's happened to me before too, where I get into like a creative moment where I'm just like, I've been doing the most, and then I try to like pull it back, but I'm so used to like operating here that like pulling it back to operate over here, I'm like, and then I wonder why I'm still burnt out. And it's like, oh, right. Because I just stopped the one thing and I started something else that was basically the exact same thing. Roll it back.
I decided to make a simple film about two dinosaurs having a fight, and what inspired me to make this film about Styracosaurus albertensis over any other dinosaur was a very specific specimen that was described last year. UALVP55900, or Hannah. Hannah is an amazing Styracosaurus. Her skull is asymmetrical, the left side of her frill having more horns than her right, likely due to some injury during her development, and this, alongside a bunch of other recent ceratopsian research, has brought up a lot of questions about dinosaur genus and species classification.
Okay.
Take Styracosaurus ovatus, also known as Rubeosaurus, for example. The main thing that made ovatus different from albertensis was its frill horn orientation, facing more inward than albertensis. But if albertensis can now have as much frill horn variation as an asymmetrical animal, how can we say for sure that ovatus isn't just another example of albertensis with inward-facing horns? That's the question that's been brought up recently, and at the moment, ovatus has been merged with albertensis as perhaps a juvenile or a female or an extreme morph of that species. My film following the extreme morph logic. Fellow dino-crazed maniacs may have noticed that the main character in this film, the old buck, himself is based on ovatus. His reveal shot proudly displaying his inward-facing horns. It was around about this time that David Silva's Beast of the Mesozoic ceratopsian figures started coming out.
Ooh,
this is an action figure line of
pretty.
scientifically accurate dinosaurs, and I'm a big fan of them. I mention this because I bought these Styracosaurus figures specifically because I was working on this film, and having a highly posable model of the exact species I was going to animate in my hand proved surprisingly invaluable to the making of this film.
You were surprised at how invaluable it is? That's awesome. I feel like that's, wow. I love how colorful it is.
With this figure, I could easily test out poses and camera angles without time-consuming storyboards or previs or test animation. The stripes on the animal in the finished film are actually a direct reference to this toy. I of course also discovered that
That's
you could
really
get two of
sweet.
these toys together and test out some fighting moves. I
Nice.
legitimately choreographed the entire fight scene in this film, playing with these toys.
Of course. Aw, that's so whimsical. Oh, I love that.
For those of you who follow my work, you'll know that I often make sculptures to accompany my animations, and I wanted to do the same thing here. I, of course, decided to sculpt a Styracosaurus. For most of the year, in Scotland, where I live, it's below 10 degrees Celsius and raining, but in spring, when I sculpted
Most of
this,
the year?
it can get to
That
a
sucks.
lovely 20 degrees, so I could do a lot of the work in my garden, which is probably one of my favourite things to do.
It's pretty. Ah, kitty cat.
This strange, fat, fluffy creature often joins me as well.
Hi, cat.
I began my sculpture without an armature. Instead, I made a bunch of clay sausages in the shape of vague dino body parts, and once they were dry, I glued them all together in a vaguely ceratopsian shape, and then added more and more clay to bulk out the general shape of a
Okay.
Styracosaurus, getting
That's a
the
cool way to do
anatomy and musculature blocked out.
That's a
For
really
the
cool way to do
surface
it.
detail, I used pre-made texture plates to make sheets of scaly skin to drape over the model, hiding
cool.
the seams between each patch with pre-made texture stamps. Wrinkles and scars and all the other surface details are made with a multitude of different tools, but this one is my favourite.
Ooh, yes.
I'm pretty certain we
Nice.
don't have any skin impressions from Styracosaurus itself, but we do have skin impressions of Centrosaurus, which is a close enough relative.
Cool.
Centrosaurus has a rather typical ceratopsian scale pattern on its upper body. Uniform, smaller, round scales surrounded by semi-evenly spaced, less common, larger scales. A bit like this, and
Okay.
a bit like this. I'm not sure where this comes from, but most of my ceratopsian toys have square-shaped crocodilian-looking scales on their undersides, so I copied that for my model as well.
Sure.
For painting, I spray painted the model with a grey primer and used acrylic paints and brushes to mimic the colour scheme seen in the animated short film, with a mostly grey body,
That's
lighter
so-
stripes,
oh,
and
that's
pink
beautiful.
highlights. And as per usual, while waiting for the paint to dry between coats, I highly recommend serenading the sculpture.
That's life, and I can't deny it.
That right there
Yep.
is the secret ingredient.
You do have to sing to them. Yes, this is
I'm
true.
quite chuffed with this piece.
Well, you should be
I sing
chuffed, it's
dinosaurs all
great.
the time. I mean, I've been doing it since I was a kid, but I feel I often
Wow.
default to exaggerating details and features because subtlety and realism is hard. This model, with its finer and more subtle skin details and realistic anatomy, really makes this guy feel alive to me
He looks
in a way
great.
that my other dinosaur sculptures just
Oh,
kind
wow.
of don't.
He looks so
He's one of my
good.
favourites so far. Absolutely rocking that pink eyeshadow, and of course having an asymmetrical frill as well.
He did a fantastic job on that. Wow.
Old Buck tells the story of a Styracosaurus, the alpha male in either a small herd or a small chunk of a mega herd. The Old Buck rests under a tree high above, a dominant, vigilant position. Twigs and foliage from the tree litter his frill like a crown, indicating that he's held this position for a very, very long time.
And he
A
doesn't have
rival
to
male
move
enters
much.
the scene and tries to assert his dominance over the group, bullying a younger male and challenging the Old Buck. The outcome of this fight is foreshadowed the moment that this film starts. When the Old Buck is resting high above his herd, his body is shown to be covered in scars and his nasal horn is badly chipped. Over the course of the film, you get to see the kinds of actions that led to these injuries. Numerous rakings have scarred his sides and numerous stabbings have chipped his horn. He has done this many,
Yup.
many times before.
And we'll do it again.
The finale of this film shows the old buck return to his post, utterly exhausted and with a fresh collection of scars. Still vigilant over his herd, but growing weaker and weaker.
He still won that one, though. Once he can't anymore, then he'll want to
This
pass on the
animated
mantle.
short film and the whole Dinosauria series is 3D animation, but I use a mix of 2D and 3D elements. I use a mix of Blender and Photoshop to achieve the look. Take this shot for example. I start with the 3D character models, which have been textured to look as 2D as I can possibly make them look.
You did a really good
I
job
make
with
a
it.
simple mock-up of the scene and I animate that shot in Blender. I then paint the background and the foreground elements in Photoshop and drag them into the scene as well.
Ooh.
Finally, I add whatever extra 2D animated elements are required on top. All of this is technically still in 3D space. Each shot looks a little something like this if you move the camera too much.
That's so cool, though. Wow.
The colour schemes of my short films are an aspect I care a lot about. Colour is a fantastic mood-setting and storytelling tool that in the animation medium specifically can be an incredible asset. The colour scheme of this film is a monochrome grayscale with red and pink highlights and a subtle baby blue added to the sky for a bit of contrast. This is quite stylised, it's not realistic,
very stylized.
but I think
I loved
the
it,
mostly
though.
grayscale colour palette with the red highlights reflects the primal, brutal, animalistic nature of this territorial fight between two prehistoric beasts really well.
And it was, no, honestly, it was great to have like the reds come through there, to have it be kind of gray and then have that, like, those flashes of red really does add to like the brutality of it all. And I think it's so cool. But it also, it's like, because the sky is pink and like there's the reds in the grass and the tree and the like the sky and everything, it does keep it, it's all very natural. It still feels like part of the same world. And I think that that's such a cool way to do it. I love color theory. It's so interesting to me. Something, something, Children's Hospital, something, something.
This film takes place in Alberta, Canada, 75 million years ago. The star of this film, and the first animal featured, is the centrosaurine ceratopsid Styracosaurus albertensis. I wanted to create a decent amount of logical variation among my herd of Styracosaurus. We have 5 total unique models: a male, a female, a juvenile, the young buck, and the old buck. Putting all of the males together, the generic male, the younger buck, and the old buck next to each other, you can see a gradual increase in the boldness of the white stripes across the animal's back and horns as they age and become more sexually mature. The youngest individual having the least amount of stripes and the oldest individual having the most. Stripes that the juveniles and the females do not have at all. The old buck's
That's cool.
frill is also pink, and in one of my favourite details of the film, the females and the other males do not have this pink accent at all, but all of the juveniles do. This subtly
That's cool.
indicates that the old buck is indeed the dominant breeding male here. These are his kids, because they have his colours.
That's so cool.
As mentioned earlier, the old buck is loosely based on Rubeosaurus, as a reference
did
to
not thought
Styracosaurus
that.
ovatus becoming one with Albertensis. But perhaps a more interesting paleontological Easter egg is with the young buck. You may have already noticed this, but the young buck has an extra horn on his left side, and that's because I based him on that asymmetrical specimen that I mentioned earlier, Hannah. Hannah had 2 healed injuries to the left side of her frill that were likely the cause of her asymmetry. So I made sure to add a visible pathology to the left side of the young buck's frill as well, a fun reference to the
cool.
very fossil that inspired this film in the first place.
That's really okay. Awesome. I love
The
secret
second
things
of
like
the
that.
3 species featured in this film is the hadrosaur Lambeosaurus lambi. Now, Lambeosaurus only appears in like 6 shots and could have easily been cut from the film, with almost no change to the
She's
narrative
fierce.
whatsoever, but I really like dinosaurs, and Lambeosaurus is one of my favourite dinosaurs, so I had to put him in.
You know, why not? And then this way you have the model for if you want to use it again later, right? Like, because you know, if it's your favorite guy, if it was one of your favorite little dudes, you're gonna want to make a video about him soon. So, like, might as well.
This film takes place during the mating season, and the Lambeosaurus featured are a mating pair. I decided to depict the animal as sexually dimorphic to show this, with the male having a larger crest and the female having a smaller one. Daspletosaurus turosus is a tyrannosaur, and it's the third and final animal featured in the film. Even though I accidentally wrote Horneri in my sketchbook. Even though the animal only appears for like 10 seconds, I still tried to cram as many paleontological Easter eggs in there as I could.
You did make him look real
To start
scared.
with, my model has some facial scars, a reference to the numerous bite marks we find on many tyrannosaur skulls, likely inflicted by other tyrannosaurs. I also decided to give my Daspletosaurus lips. Now, lips or no lips on theropod dinosaurs, and specifically tyrannosaurs, is a very controversial topic among the dino community, and Daspletosaurus is kind of at the heart of this debate.
I like
with
lips.
a pretty infamous paper published in 2017 which myself and many others aren't very convinced by. I personally think that lipped theropods is the slightly more accurate depiction at the moment.
It just makes more sense.
Either is fine.
But
And finally, tyrannosaurs living in social groups is something that's been debated for a very long time, and again, Daspletosaurus is kind of at the heart of this debate, because a bone bed was found in Montana preserving 3 individual Daspletosaurus of different ages that were all feeding on hadrosaurs at the same time when they died. It's unclear as to whether or not this truly represents pack behaviour, or whether the individuals were totally unrelated and just gathered to take advantage of the same feast. In reference to this discovery in my film, I made sure to have 3 Daspletosaurus gather on the top of that hill.
that's so
I
cool.
tried to keep it vague as to whether or not this is representing a social group or 3 totally unrelated.
Just like randomly, just like spectators, you know, like what happens if you see a couple of people start to have a fight in the middle of the street. Or if you're in, then for me, I've witnessed a lot of those kinds of fights at school when I was growing up. There was always somebody having a fight at a dance or in the parking lot, or, you know, while we were waiting to be released from gym class. But, you know, two people start having a fight, you get rubberneckers. You get people being like, oh, what's going on there, huh?
animals, all taking advantage of the same situation.
Little onlookers.
I've talked about some of the paleontological bits and bobs that went into my creative decisions working on this film, but I'm not totally sure if I'd call this film particularly scientifically accurate as a whole.
It's cool looking.
Extremely hard to balance creative storytelling drama with real-life scientific fact. Those two things, more often than not, are at complete odds with each other. These films are fictional short films at the end of the day. They are not documentaries. I would like them to be, but they're not. They still have to have characters, conflict, a story, and a moral. They have to be dramatised to an extent. But I feel this film ended up a little bit too dramatised. I think the animals in this film are depicted as a little bit too intelligent and a bit too humanised.
I can see where he's coming from with that, especially again the Tyrannosaur, like being like, oh, whoa, you know. I thought that was cute. I liked that. But I can see, depending on what he's actually going for, I feel like he kept things pretty dramatic in the second one too, though.
There's also no evidence to suggest that Styracosaurus had big violent fights like this at all, and the nature of the fight itself just seems far too over the top and violent to me. Easily my biggest problem with this film is the shock horror sudden impaling at the end. I don't think this film is bad at all. I think it looks decent, it's animated well, I think it's a well-paced film with a beginning, a satisfying escalation, and an end and a point. But this film was conceived and choreographed by smashing two dinosaur toys together, and to me, it
Okay.
certainly shows.
Yeah, I can see that.
I'm sure, as I've showed with the research, the 3D models, the sculpture, the sketchbook, a lot of time and love still went into this project. I really enjoyed making this, and even though I'm not particularly proud of the finished film, I certainly look back at the experience with very pleasant feelings, which was the goal that I set out with. This film is extremely close to my dear old heart. Before this, I was working for months and months on a project that I hated, and I was seriously considering stopping. But this simple, fun dinosaur film reminded me that I still enjoy this. I mean, it was wonderful. Researching, feeling inspired, drawing, sculpting, and animating something I love again. In fact, I mean, I enjoyed working on Old Buck so much that it grew into a whole creative entity of its own. It spawned this entire series, becoming the first of 5 animated short films so far. And trust me, this is easily the weakest of the series in my opinion. The films just get better and better from here. If you want to support me or read through the sketchbook I've been showing off in this video, you can. The sketchbook has just been uploaded to my Patreon page.
Cool.
You also gain access to updates on the Dinosauria series and gain early access to each of my animated short films 2 weeks before they're released here on YouTube. Probably unsurprisingly, this was the most fun I've had making a behind the scenes video in years. But, I mean, I knew that was going to happen. I was looking forward to this. I love
fun with the thing.
talking about dinosaurs.
That's fair. Dinosaurs are
Now,
cool.
If you'll excuse me, I'm going to go outside and film some B-roll for the outro. I'll be looking for, I don't know, the most interesting tree I can find.
Okay. Well, that's fun.
Special thanks to all my top Patreon supporters on screen right now, hopefully scrolling over some footage of a cool tree. I could not have made this series without these people.
And there was a fun little gremlin in there.
Have supported me through some extremely important healing months of my life, and I really cannot thank you enough for that. But
I didn't do it.
I can give you this tree.
It's a cool tree. I that was fun. Okay, so I guess next time I'll do the making of the second one, the making of our frozen past, and then for the next 3 videos in this series, what I'll do is react to the video and the making of in the same video is what I will do for the next several. So next one will just be a single making of video, and the next time I will just watch the whole thing. I'll watch both parts in one. So that's the current plan. Thank you so much for watching. And let me know what I should look at next. Bye.